So today we're going to run through some really quick articles. I'm going to keep this nice and short, but firstly, before I begin, I just want to thank each and every one of you for subscribing to this channel. We now have 16,400 people subscribed to the channel, so I am truly grateful for all of that. Thank you for checking out all the videos. I try my absolute best to bring you the best content, stuff that's useful. So I always appreciate you guys sticking around. So guys, let's quickly jump straight into this one. So on this week, experts are now predicting is that this was actually down to summer distractions rather than a potentially deteriorating economic climate. And some new figures from Rightmove show that the average price of the UK property has dropped to 365,173 in August, marking a 1.3% or £4,795 decline. So it's actually more than we thought. Again, a change in the direction. What does this mean? Well, time will tell. However, there's just some interesting stuff that I thought you guys should definitely be aware of. Is firstly, let's just have a look at the average price of the property coming to market. We can see it's dropped by 1.3%. Nothing too crazy if you just look at that. You know, it's nothing to like panic about, but it's still definitely interesting nonetheless. And then if we just quickly look at the Lloyds Banking Group, which owns Halifax, who, as many of you guys know, is the country's largest mortgage lender. Well, they said last month that while it was bracing itself for a slowdown in property price growth and mortgage lending, its own rate of lending was still likely to grow by single digits over the next 12 to 18 months. Well, they seem to be doing a good job. And Rightmove said it still expects UK house prices to end the year at 7% higher than in 2021. So that's really interesting as well. Obviously 2021 compared to 2020 was incredible in terms of house price growth. And then it does touch on something that many of you guys do shout at me for when I say there could be a potential wobble, prices could stagnate and go down. And it's about the lack of supply. So the property website said that the lack of supply would continue propping up the prices. And given that the level of available stock is actually down 39%, that's something that actually kind of opposes what I say. So again, I'm not here trying to sell you one type of bias. I'm just sharing what I see and then giving you my opinion based on the information that I have before me. Now, this website seems like they literally just copied the last website, so I don't mean any offense there, but essentially I just wanted to show you guys this little statistic here. Rightmove has reported an easing in annual rate of house price growth to 8.2% in August, down from 9.3% from the previous month. Let's move on. I just want to quickly show you this. This is about a recession and what it could mean for fixed rate customers who have their mortgages on fixed rates. Now, the Bank of England has been raising its base interest rates nearly every month since February. And what they're talking about here is just the cost of everything going up. But I don't want to bore you guys by saying the exact same thing. But essentially, a couple of people have asked me, I think over on TikTok, in relation to how does increasing interest rates essentially combat inflation? Because essentially that's what the government's trying to do. And very, very basic economic terms, guys. I'm not an economist. I stopped at A-levels. I passed my A-level, thankfully. But essentially, the answer is here. The increase is designed to make borrowing more expensive and essentially encouraging people to save rather than spend instead. So guys, that's all you need to know in relation to that and why the government is doing what it's doing. Moving on. Which areas in England are worst affected by the housing crisis? Now, I thought this would be quite an interesting one. It's slightly different to what I normally put on this channel. So essentially what we're doing is we're just looking at what the experts are saying, as always. So the experts in the housing sector say we are not building enough and essentially we're not able to keep up with the population growth. And if we just have a look here, this was quite an interesting infographic where we can essentially see the areas where it essentially looks at the percentage point difference between population and house building growth. So as you can see here, that leans towards properties and that's obviously population. So just hovering over, let's just look at, we can look at anyone really. Let's just have a look here. West Northamptonshire, the population has increased by 13.5% in the decade, while the number of houses has only risen by 10.4% during the same period. Hence, it's that color and there's obviously a skew towards population. So guys, play around with this. I'm not going to go through every single one and make you sit through it, but it was quite interesting. But when there's not enough properties, essentially prices are higher and renting conditions are often worse. And this is because landlords, essentially they have more leverage, they have more power. And in England, only 1% of residential properties are actually vacant, which is far lower than other European countries. Now, many of you probably don't care about that or other countries. That's absolutely fine. We're going to keep it based on UK. But this is really interesting as well in terms of it shows the areas in the south of England tend to have a lower proportion of vacant dwellings. And it just goes through all the areas here. Again, guys, feel free to play around with it. You can literally hover over it. It just shows all the areas. So guys, if you're interested, again, it is there. Now, the housing shortage was very much an issue in many cities already, and these are the same cities that are struggling now. And on average, more than 8 in 10 of the new residential properties created in England in 2021 were new build dwellings. I found that odd when I read that. I mean, new residential properties created in 2021, I would have assumed they're all are, but again, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they're, I don't know, renovating old stock, for example. That could probably be it, really. Ignore me if I said something stupid there. So what does this mean for house prices? Prices have increased everywhere over a decade, but the rise has been over 50% in 2/3 of England's local authorities, which is staggering. And house builders face red tape, they face uncertainty over government support issues, and often it's not straightforward as going in and plugging a hole. Now, I know this, we're building our own houses. Planning is a nightmare. We were trying to build 20 plus units, back and forth with planning, up and down. Now we're at the stage of discharging on 18 units. So it is an absolute nightmare, and it's taken us 24 months for that. So, you know, we're happy to build the houses, but sometimes there's just so much red tape and so much back and forth, and it's just an absolute nightmare. But you guys ain't here for that. So let's move on. So again, they're committed to the target of 300,000, which is what I think I mentioned on the last video. So I won't bore you too much with that. And then finally, my friends, just before we close the video, the ONS will report July's inflation figures on Wednesday, and a release will be hotly anticipated given the 9.4% annual increase in the consumer price index in June, which was the highest in 40 years. So guys, of course, if you have any other suggestions for any other types of videos, drop them in the comments down below, and have yourselves an awesome day.